Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 901st night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth the cat to the mouse, So suffer me to night with thee this night, after which I will wend my way. Hearing these words, the mouse replied, How shall I suffer thee enter my nest, seeing that thou art my natural foe, and thy food is of my flesh? Indeed, I fear lest thou false me, for that is thy nature, and there is no faith in thee. And the byword saith, It befitteth not to entrust a leecher with a fair woman, nor a moneyless man with money, nor fire with fuel. Neither doth it behoove me to entrust myself to thee, and 'tis said, Enmity of kind as the enemy himself groweth weaker, groweth stronger. The cat made answer in the faintest voice, as she were in the most piteous case, saying, What thou advantest of admonitory instances is the truth, and I deny not my offences against thee. But I beseech thee to pardon that which is past of the enmity of kind between me and thee, for 'tis said, Whoso forgiveth a creature like myself, his Creator will forgive him his sins. 'Tis true that whilome I was thy foe, but here I am a suitor for thy friendship, and they say, and thou wilt have thy foe become thy friend, and do with him good. O my brother, now I swear to thee by Allah, and make a binding covenant with thee, that I will not hurt thee never more, and for the best of reasons, to wit that I have no power thereto. Wherefore place thy trust in Allah, and do good, and accept my oath and covenant. Quoth the mouse, How can I accept the covenant of one between whom and me there is rooted enmity, and whose wont it is to deal treacherously by me? Were the feud between us aught but one of blood, this were light to me, but it is an enmity of kind between souls, and it is said, Whoso trusteth himself to his foe is as one who trusts his hand into a serpent's mouth. Quoth the cat, full of wrath, My breast is strait, and my soul is faint. Indeed, I am in articulo mortis, and ere long I shall die at thy door, and my blood will be on thy head, for that thou hadst in thy power to save me in mine extremity, and this is my last word to thee. Herewith the fear of Almighty Allah overcame the mouse, and ruth gat hold upon his heart, and he said to himself, Whoso would have the succor of Allah the Most High against his foe, let him entreat him with compassion and kindness show. I rely upon the Almighty in this matter, and will deliver this cat from this her strait, and earn the divine reward for her. So he went forth, and dragged into his nest the cat, where she abode till she was rested, and somewhat strengthened and restored, when she began to bewail her weaknesses, and wasted strength, and want of gossips. The mouse entreated her in friendly guise, and comforted her, and busied himself with her service. But she crept along till she got command of the rest of the nest, lest the mouse should escape. So when the nest owner would have gone out after his wont, he drew near the cat, whereupon she seized him, and taking him in her claws, began to bite him, and shake him, and take him in and out of her mouth, and lift him up, and cast him down, and ran after him, and cranched him, and tortured him. The mouse cried out for help, beseeching deliverance of Allah, and began to upbraid the cat, saying, Where is the covenant thou madest with me, and where are the oaths thou swearest to me? Is this my reward for helping thee? I besought thee into my nest, and trusted myself to thee. But sooth he spake that saith, Whoso relieth on his enemy's promise desireth not salvation for himself. And again, Whoso confideth himself to his foe deserveth his own destruction. Yet do I put my trust in my Creator, for he will deliver me from you. Now, as he was in this condition, with the cat about to pounce on him and devour him, behold, up came a huntsman with hunting dogs, trained to the chase. One of the hounds' mouse passed by the mouth of the nest, and hearing a great scuffling, thought therein there was a fox tearing somewhat. So he crept into the hole to get at him, and coming upon the cat, seized on her. When she found herself in the dog's clutches, she was forced to take thought and net, saving herself, and loosed the mouse alive and whole, and without wound. Then the hound brake her neck, and dragging her forth of the hole, threw her down dead, and thus was exemplified the truth of the saying, Who hath compassion shall be the last be compassionate. Whoso oppresseth shall presently be oppressed. This, then, O king, added the interpreter, is what befell the mouse and the cat, and teaches that none should break faith with those who puts trust in him. For whoever doth perfidy and treason, there shall befall him the like of that which befelleth the cat. As a man meteth, so shall it be meted upon him, and he who betaketh himself to good shall gain his eternal reward. But grieve thou not, neither let this trouble thee, O king, but that assuredly thy son, after his tyranny and oppression, shall return to the goodliness of thy policy. And I would that yon learned man, thy Wazir Shima, had concealed from thee naught and that which he expounded unto thee, and this had been well advised of him, for 'tis said, those of the folk who most abound in fear are the amplest of them in knowledge, and the most emulous of good. The king received the interpreter's speech with submission, and gifted him and his fellows with rich gifts. Then, dismissing them, he arose and withdrew to his own apartments, and fell to pondering the issue of his affair. When night came, he went in to one of his women, who was in favour with him, and dearest to him of them all, and lay with her. And ere some 4 months had passed over her, the child stirred in her womb, whereat she rejoiced with joy exceeding, and told the king. Quoth he, My dream, said sooth by Allah the Helper. And he lodged her in the goodliest of lodgings, and entreated her with all honour, bestowing on her rich gifts and manifold boons. Then he sent one of his pages to fetch his Wazir Shima, and as soon as he was in the presence, told the minister what had betided, rejoicing and saying, My dream is come true, and I have won my wish. It may be this burden with be a man-child, and inherit the kingship after me. What sayest thou, O Shima? But he was silent, and made no reply. Whereupon cried the king, What aileth thee that thou rejoicest not in my joy, and returnest me no answer? Doth a thing mislike thee, O Shima? Hereat the Wazir prostrated himself before him, and said, O king, may Allah prolong thy life. What availeth to sit under the shade of a tree, if there issue fire therefrom? And what is the delight of one who drinketh pure wine, if he be choked thereby? And what doth it profit to quench one's thirst with sweet cool water, if one be drowned therein? I am Allah's servant, and thine, O king, but there are 3 things whereof it besitteth not the understanding to speak till they be accomplished. To wit, the wayfarer till he return from his way, the man who is in fight till he has overcome his foe, and the pregnant woman till she hath cast her burthen. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 902nd night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that after Shima had enumerated to the king the 3 things whereof besitteth not the understanding to speak, save after they are done, he continued, For know, O king, that he who speaketh of aught before its accomplishment is like the Fakir, who had hung over his head the jar of clarified butter. What is the story of the Fakir? Asked the king, and what happened to him? Answered the Wazir, O king, they tell this tale in it, of the Fakir and the jar of butter. A Fakir abode once with one of the nobles of a certain town, who made him a daily allowance of 3 scones and a little clarified butter and honey. Now such butter was dear in those parts, and the devotee laid it all that came to him together in a jar he had, till it filled it, and it hung up over his head for safe keeping. One night, as he sat on his bed, staff in hand, he fell a musing upon the butter and the greatness of its price, and said to himself, Needs must I sell all this butter I have by me, and buy with the price a ewer, and take to partner therein a fellow who hath a ram. The first year she will bear a male lamb, and a female, and a second a female and a male, and these in their turn will bear other males and other females, nor will they give over bearing females and males till they become a great matter. Then will I take my share and vent thereof what I will. The males I will sell, and buy with them bulls and cows, which will also increase and multiply and become many, after which will I purchase such a piece of land, and plant a garden thereon, and build thereon a mighty fine palace. Moreover, I will get me robes and raiment, and slaves and slave girls, and hold a wedding never and seen the like thereof. I will slaughter cattle, and make rich meats and sweetmeats and confections, and assemble all the musicians and the mimes and the mountebanks and the player folk, and after providing flowers and perfumes and all manner of sweet herbs, I will bid rich and poor, fakirs and ulemas, captains and lords of the land, and whoso asketh for aught, I will cause it to be brought to him. And I will make ready all manner of meat and drink, and send out a crier to cry aloud and say, Whoso seeketh aught, let him ask and get it. Lastly, I will go into my bride, after unveiling and enjoying her beauty and loveliness, and I will eat and drink and make merry, and say to myself, Verily, hast thou won thy wish, and will rest from devotion and divine worship. Then in due time my wife will bear me a boy, and I shall rejoice in him, and take banquets in his honor, and rear him daintily, and teach him philosophy and mathematics and polite letters, so that I shall make his name renowned among men, and glory in him among the assemblies of the learned. And I will forbid him from lewdness and iniquity, and exhort him to piety in the practice of righteousness. And I will bestow on him rich and goodly gifts, and if I see him obscuisant in obedience, I will redouble my bounties towards him. But I see him inclined to disobedience, I will come down on him with this staff. So saying, he raised his hand to beat his son withal, but the staff hit the jar of butter which hung over his head, and he brake it. Whereupon the shards fell upon him, and the butter ran down upon his head, his rags, and his beard. So his clothes and bed were spoiled, and it became a caution to whosoever should be cautious. Wherefore, O king, added the Wazir, it behoveth not a man to speak of aught ere it come to pass. Answered the king, Thou sayest sooth. Fair fall for thee, a Wazir. Verily, the truth thou speakest, and righteous thou counsellest. Indeed, thy rank with me is such as thou couldst wish, and thou shalt never cease to be accepted of me. Thereupon the Wazir prostrated himself before the king, and wished him permanence of prosperity, saying, Allah prolong thy days, and thy rank uprise. Know that I conceal from thee naught, nor in private, nor in public aught. Thy pleasure is my pleasure, and thy displeasure my displeasure. There is no joy for me save in thy joyance, and I cannot sleep o' nights, and thou be angered against me, for that Allah of the Most High hath vouchsafed me all good through thy bounties to me. Wherefore I beseech thee, the Almighty, to guard thee with his angels, and to make fair thy reward whenas thou meetest him. The king rejoiced in this, whereupon Shimas arose and went out from before him. In due time the king's wife bare a male child, and the messengers hastened to bear the glad tidings and congratulate the sovereign, who rejoiced therein with joy exceeding, and thanked all with abundant thanks, saying, Alhamdulillah, laud to the Lord, who hath vouchsafed me a son, after I had despaired, for he is pitiful and ruthful to his servants. Then he wrote to all the lieges of his land, acquainting them with the good joy, and bidding them to his capital, and great were the rejoicings and festivities in all the realm. Accordingly there came emirs and captains, grandees, sages, ulemas, and literaries, scientists and philosophers, every quarter of the palace, and all presenting themselves before the king, company after company, according to their different degrees, and gave him joy, and he bestowed large jests upon them. Then he signed to the 7 chief wazirs, whose head was Shimas, to speak, each after the measure of his wisdom, upon the matter which concerned him the most. So the grand Wazir Shimas began, and sought leave of the king to speak with him, being granted. He spake as follow. Praise be Allah, who brought us into existence from non-existence, and who favoureth his servants with kings that observe justice and equity in the wherewith he hath invested them of rule and dominion, who hath acted righteously with that which he appointed at their hands of the provision for their lieges, and most especially our sovereign, by whom he hath quickened the deadness of our land with that which he hath conferred upon us of bounties, and hath blessed us of his protection with the ease of life, and tranquillity, and fair dealing. What king did ever with his folk that which this king hath done with us, in fulfilling our needs, and giving us our dues, and doing justice, one of the other, and in abundant carefulness over in his redress of our wrongs? Indeed, it is of the favor of Allah to the people that their king be assiduous in ordering their affairs, and in defending them from their foes, for the end of the enemy's intent is to subdue his enemies, and to hold him in his hand. And many people bring their sons as servants unto kings, and they become with them in their stead of slaves, to the intent that they may repel ill-willers from them. As for us, no enemy hath trodden our soil in the days of this our king, by reason of this praising good fortune and exceeding happiness, that no describer may avail to describe, for indeed it is above and beyond all description. And verily, O king, thou art worthy of this highest happiness, and we are under thy safeguard and in the shadow of thy wings. May Allah make fair thy reward and prolong thy life. Indeed, we have long been diligent in supplication to Allah Almighty, that he would vouchsafe an answer to our prayers, and continue thee to us, and grant thee a virtuous son, to be the cooling of thine eyes. And now Allah, extolled and exalted be he, hath accepted of us and replied to our petition. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 903rd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Shimas the Wazir said to the king, And now Almighty Allah hath accepted us and answered our petition, and brought us speedy relief, even as he did to the fishes in the pond of water. The king asked, And how was that, and what is the tale? And Shimas answered him, Hear, O king, the story of the fishes and the crab. In a certain place there was a piece of water wherein dwelt a number of fishes, and it befell that the pond dwindled away and shrank, and wasted till there remained barely enough to suffice them. They were nigh upon death, and said, What will become of us? How shall we contrive, and of whom shall we seek counsel for our deliverance? Thereupon rose one of them, who was the chiefest in wit and age. There is nothing will serve us, save that we seek salvation of Allah. But let us consult the crab, and ask his advice. So come ye all, and hie we himwards, and hear his rede, for indeed he is the chiefest and wisest of us all in coming upon the truth. Each and every approved of the fish's advice, and betook themselves to a body to the crab, whom they found squatted in his hole, without news or knowledge of their strait. So they saluted him with salam, and said, O our lord, doth not our affair concern thee, who art ruler and head of us? The crab returned to their salutation, replying, And on you be the peace. What aileth you, and what do you want? So they told him their case, and the strait wherein they were by reason of the wastage of the water, and then when it should be dried up, destruction would betide them, adding, Wherefore we come to thee, expecting thy counsel, and what may bring us deliverance, for thou art the chiefest and most experienced of us. The crab bowed his head awhile, and said, Doubtless ye lack understanding, in that ye despair of the mercy of Allah Almighty, and his care for the provision of his creatures one and all. Know ye not that Allah, extolled and exalted be he, provideth all his creatures without account, and that he foreordained their daily meat ere he create aught of creation, and appointed to each of his creatures a fixed term of life, and an allotted provision of his divine all-might? How then shall we burden ourselves with concern for a thing which is in his secret purpose is indite? Wherefore it is my rede that ye can do naught better than to seek aid in Allah Almighty, and it behoveth each of us to clear his conscience with his Lord, both in public and private, and pray him to succor us and deliver us from our difficulties. For Allah the Most High disappointeth not the expectation of those who put their trust in him, and reject him not the supplications of those who prefer their suit to him. When we have mended our ways, our affairs will be set up, and all will be well with us. And when the winter cometh, and our land is deluged by means of a just one's prayer, he will not cast down the good he hath built up. So 'tis my counsel that we take patience, and await what Allah shall do with us. And death come to us as is wont, we shall be at rest, and if there befall us aught that calleth for flight, we will flee and depart our land whither Allah will. Answered all the fishes with one voice, Thou sayest sooth, O our Lord. Allah requite thee for us weal. Then each returned to his stead, and in a few days the Almighty Allah vouchsafed unto them a violent rain, and the place of the pond was filled fuller than before. And likewise, O king, continued Shimas, We despaired of a child being born to thee, and now that God hath blessed us with and thee with this well-omened son, we implore him to render him blessed indeed, and make him the coolth of thine eyes, and a worthy successor to thee, and grant of us him the like of that which he hath granted us of thee. For Almighty Allah disappointeth not those that seek him, and it behoveth none to cut off hope of the mercy of his God. Then rose a second Wazir, and saluting the king with a salam spake, after his greeting was returned, as follows. Verily, a king is not called a king, save he give presence unto justice, and rule with equity, and show munificence, and wisely govern his lieges, maintaining the obligatory laws and the apostolic usages established among them, and justifying them one against the other, and sparing their blood, and warding off hurt from them. And of his qualities should be that he never abides incurious of the poor, and that he succor the highest and lowest of them, and give them each the rights to them due, so that they all bless him, and are obedient to his command. Without a doubt, a king who is after this wise of his lieges is beloved, and gaineth of the world eminence, and of the next honour and favour with the creator thereof. And we, the body politic of thy subjects, acknowledge in thee, O king, all the attributes of kingship. I have noted, even as it is said, the best of things is that a king of a people be just and equitable, their physician skilful, and their teacher experience full, acting according to his knowledge. Now we enjoy this happiness after we had despaired of the birth of a son to thee to inherit thy kingship. However, Allah, extolled be his name, hath not disappointed thine expectations, but hath granted thy petition by reason of the goodliness of thy trust in him, and thy submission of thine affairs to him. Then fair fall thy hope. There hath betided thee that which betided the crow and the serpent. Asked the king, and what was that? And the Wazir answered, Hear, O king, the tale of the crow and the serpent. A crow once dwelt in a tree, he and his wife, in all delight of life, till they came to the time of the hatching of the young, which was midsummer season, when a serpent issued from its hole and crawled up the tree, wriggling around the branches till it came to the crow's nest, where it coiled itself up, and there abode all the days of the summer, whilst the crow was driven away, and found no opportunity to clear his home, nor any place wherein to lie. When the days of heat were past, the serpent went away to its own place, and quoth the crow to his wife, Let us thank Almighty Allah, who hath preserved us, and delivered us from this serpent, albeit we are forbidden from increase this year. Yet the Lord will not cut off our hopes, so let us express our gratitude to him for having vouchsafed us safety and soundness of body. Indeed, we have none other in whom to confide, and if he will, and will live see the next year, he shall give us another young one in its stead of those we have missed this year. Next summer, when the hatching season came around, the serpent again sallied forth from its place, and made for the crow's nest. But as it was coiling up a branch, a kite swooped down on it, and struck claws into its head, and tare it, whereupon it fell to the ground to swoop, and the ants came out upon it, and ate it. So the crow and his wife abode in peace and quiet, and bred a numerous brood, and thanked Allah for their safety, and for the young that were born to them. In like manner, O king, continued the Wazir, it behoveth us to thank God for that wherewith he hath favoured thee and us, vouchsafing us this blessed child of good omen, after despair and the cutting off of hope. May he make fair thy future reward, and issue of thine affair. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale for today, till it be morrow.